Hello friends, welcome back to our channel. I hope you all are well and doing great. So today I'm back with another video to continue our UCAT test preparation. So as you guys know, we have started our fourth type of decision making and we have completed its 28 questions in the last video. So if you are new on our channel, you can watch our last videos on tour tutorial, question bank tutorials, and verbal reasoning practice questions, and the other three types of decision making practice questions. Okay, so without any further delay, let's move towards our first question of this video, which says a French man who suffered burns across 95% of his body has been saved by skin transplants from his identical twin. Nearly half of his brother's skin was removed and then stretched in a machine so that it would cover a larger area. Transplants from an identical twin, which had been done before but never over such a large area, eliminate the risk of rejection by the recipient's body. Normally, skin grafts from a deceased and unrelated donor are used even though they are nearly always rejected within a couple of weeks. This is enough time for new skin to start growing. So place yes if the conclusion does follow and place no if the conclusion does not follow. So first conclusion we have skin's plasticity was partially credited for the success of the transplant. Second, transplanting organs from close relatives remove the skin risk of rejection. Transplanting skins between twins was the world's first operation. Organ donors must be related to the victim for a transplant to be considered viable. Skin grafts on a recipient's body are rarely permanent. So here we have a first conclusion which says that skin's plasticity was partially credited for the success of the transplant. This conclusion does follow because the skin was stretched by a machine to cover a larger area. So it's a yes, so we will drag a yes and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next conclusion that says transplanting organs from close relatives removes the risk of rejection. It does not follow because the passage provides only information about organs from identical twin, allowing for the risk to be fully eliminated. So as it does not follow, we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Then we have a third conclusion which says transplanting skins between twins was the world's first operation. It does not follow because the passage states it had been done before. So it's a no. We will drag a no and drop it here. Fourth conclusion which says that organ donors must be related to the victim for a transplant to be considered viable. It does not follow because the passage states that skin of unrelated donor is still used even if it is expected to be rejected with weeks. So it does not follow, that's why we will again drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. The last conclusion would say skin grafts on a recipient's body are rarely permanent. It does follow because the grafts are nearly always rejected after a couple of weeks. So it does follow, that's why we will drag a yes and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Like this. Next we have the graph shows the median age of the population in each of 5 countries in a certain year. Year 1 and in year 50 to 50 years after year 1. The increase of decrease in median age in all countries except in country C is related to the change in birth rate in those countries. So here we have a graph by which you can see the data that is given. First we have median age in years in a vertical form, and then we have countries in horizontal form. So place yes if the conclusion does follow and place no if the conclusion does not follow. First we have the average life expectancy in all the 5 countries is approximately the same. From year 1 to year 50, the birth rate in country A is much higher than the birth rate in country E. Third, if the trend in the median age of the population in country B continues, the country could soon face the challenge of a shrinking workforce. So the fourth one says from year 1 to year 50, more women in country B joined the workforce than in any other country, leading to a low birth rate in the country. An influx of the international migrants in country C between the 2 years ensured that the median age of the population remained about the same. So here we have these conclusions, and the first conclusion that says the average life expectancy in all the 5 countries is approximately the same. This one does follow because there is nothing in the graph or text from which to draw this conclusion. So as it does not follow, it's a no. So we will drag a no and drop it here. Next we have a second conclusion which says from year 1 to year 50, the birth rate in country A is much higher than the birth rate in country E. It does follow because the growth in median age is significantly higher in country E than in country A. This implies that the birth rate is higher in country A than in country E. So this one does follow. So we will drag a yes and drop it here in front of this box. Now we have a third conclusion which says if the trend in the median age of the population in country B continues, the country could soon face the challenge of a shrinking workforce. It does follow, as country B's median age has seen a significant growth, and if the trend continues, the population that can work will definitely shrink. So this one does follow the statement from the question. So we will drag our yes and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next we have fourth conclusion, which says from year 1 to year 50, more women in country B join the workforce than in any other country, leading to a low birth rate in the country. So this conclusion does not follow. While women in the workplace force could be the reason for a significant growth in median age, implying a low birth rate, it cannot be concluded that the is the reason for the low birth rate. So this one does not follow. So that's why we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next we have a fifth conclusion, which says an influx of international migrant in country C between the 2 years ensured that the median age of the population remained about the same. It does not follow, although country C's minimal change in median age is not attributed to the birth rate. The data does not tell us what the reason for this minimal change is. That's why we can say that this conclusion does not follow the statement of the question. So it's a no, and we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Priming suggests that one scarce unit of information stored in our country, in our memory, are activated in unison. A connection is made between the two. More simultaneous activations lead to stronger connections, resulting in quicker recall of two associated concepts. This enhanced connectivity results in a faster response to a stimulus based on prior exposure to a related stimulus. While in both semantic and perceptual priming, prior exposure to a word can potentially enable faster processing of a related word. The word association is more linguistic in the former. In perceptual priming, the association is with words with similar forms, like rhyming words. So place yes if the conclusion does follow, and place no if the conclusion does not follow. So the first conclusion that says Semantic priming effects, though used widely in cognitive psychology, are transient in nature. Once an association is made between two schemas in long-term memory, it is almost impossible to break in. It is possible to manipulate the time a person takes to respond to a subsequent stimulus based on a prior stimulus. The exposure to a prime peer is less likely to facilitate the recognition or processing of the word bad than the word fruit. Homophones, words that sound the same but have different spellings and meanings, have the potential to be associated in perceptual priming. So here we have these 5 conclusions. So let's see which one does follow and which one does not. So first conclusion, that semantic priming effects, though used widely in cognitive psychology, are transient in nature. It does not follow, while this may be true, it is not mentioned in the passage. So it does not follow, so that's why we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next we have a second conclusion, that once an association is made between two schemas in long-term memory, it is almost impossible to break it. It does not follow, although the passage mentions stronger connections, these become stronger with more simultaneous activations rather than after one association. Additionally, the passage does not mention breaking associations. So, because of this reason, we can say that the second conclusion also does not follow the statement of the question. So, we will drag a no and drop it here. Now, we have a third conclusion which says it is possible to manipulate the time a person takes to respond to a subsequent stimulus based on a prior stimulus. It does follow, as the passenger talks about more activations leading to stronger connections, which in turn leads to quicker recall of associated concepts. Varying the activations can therefore result in changing the response time. So this conclusion does follow the statement of the question. We will drag a yes and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Now we have a fourth conclusion which says that the exposure to a prime peer is less likely to facilitate the recognition or processing of the word bed than the word fruit. So this conclusion does follow, as the lack of semantic relationship between peer and bed makes it less likely to associate the two than the logically related words pear and fruit. So this fourth conclusion does follow, and we will drag a yes and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Last we have that homophones, words that sound the same but have different spellings, have the potential to be associated in perceptual rhyming. It does follow because homophones are words with similar forms. So this is the basic reason we have, because of which we can say that this conclusion does follow the statement of the question. So we will drop a yes in front of this conclusion. Next we have the development of high yield varieties of crops, synthetic fertilizers, pesticides and herbicides, coupled with improvements in irrigation, increase the productivity of crops. However, the nutrient levels in some of these crops declined. While some studies attribute this decline primarily to the disruption of the soil balance with the overuse of synthetic fertilizers, others attribute it to genetic modification of crops. The advent of genetic modification to primarily tackle world hunger has resulted in a global food system, which in some cases, like in wheat production, has been designed to deliver calories and visual perfection while giving nutrition a backseat. So place yes if the conclusion does follow, and place no if the conclusion does not follow. So the first conclusion we have that currently people feel full from calorie rich food but not from nutritious food. Scientists experimenting with genetic modification ignore the nutrition content in crops. Fruit, vegetables, and crops are no longer considered the healthiest and most nutritious food on the planet. Some studies have revealed that lower nutrients in crops is not mainly because of changes in soil components. People on primarily plant-based diets are eating less nutritious food than people on the same diet prior to the beginning of genetic modification. So here we have 5 conclusions. So let's see which one does follow the statement of the question and which one does not. So the first conclusion, which says currently people feel full from calorie rich food but not from nutritious food. It does not follow because the passage does not talk about all types of food but just crops. It also doesn't state what kind of food makes people feel full. Only that genetic modification is creating foods with more calories. So the first conclusion does not follow, so we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next we have a second conclusion which says scientists experimenting with genetic modification ignore the nutrition content in crops. This one does not follow because nutrition only took a back seat in the genetic modification of some crops, and the passage only mentions wheat as an example. Other crops may continue to be nutritious after genetic modification. So, we can say that the second conclusion does not follow. So we will drag a no and drop it here. Third conclusion that says fruit, vegetables, and crops are no longer considered the healthiest and most nutritious food on the planet. It does not follow because there is no information in the passage to support this. So, this conclusion does not support any information related to the passage, so it does not follow. So, we will drag a no and drop it here. Some studies have revealed that the lower nutrients in crops is not mainly because of changes in soil components. So this means it does follow because the studies that attribute the decrease in nutrients to genetic modification do not attribute the decrease in nutrients to changes in soil. So this conclusion does follow the statement of the passage, so we will say it's a yes. We will drag it and drop it. Fifth conclusion that people on primarily plant-based diets are eating less nutrient food than people on the same diet prior to the beginning of genetic modification. It does follow because this can be concluded based on the whole passage. So we will again drag a yes and drop it in front of this conclusion. Okay, the inability of the synthetic polymer derived from petroleum used in the topmost layer of grease resistant food packaging to degrade poses recycling issues. On the other hand, bio-based packaging made with sodium alginate, a natural polymer obtained from brown seaweed, is not problematic. The similarity of the seaweed polymer structure to the structure in craft paper makes it possible to recycle grease resistant packaging paper made with the natural polymer into new paper. Additionally, seaweed, with its resilience in both tropical climates and in cold weather, coupled with its quick growing nature, is a sustainable biomass. So place yes if the conclusion does follow, and place no if the conclusion does not follow. So here we have first conclusion, which says the development of seaweed based bioplastic will boost the livelihoods of seaweed farmers. Second, the widespread use of sodium alginate as a thickening agent is due to its biodegradable properties. Third, seaweed has the potential to transform the global food packaging industry by reducing reliance on highly pollutive conventional plastic. Though one polymer is synthetic and the other natural, both polymers used in the coating of packaging are sourced from renewable resources. Despite the capability of seaweed to provide non-polluting food packaging, its inability to grow in all climates, will prevent it from being a global solution. So, here we have all these five conclusions, and the first conclusion, that the development of seaweed based bioplastic will boost the livelihoods of seaweed farmers. This one does not follow because the passage does not mention seaweed farmers or the potential impact on their livelihoods. So this one does not follow, so we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Second, we have that the widespread use of sodium alginate as a thickening agent is due to its biodegradable properties. It does not follow because it cannot be concluded that the use of sodium alginate is widespread. So it's a no again. Third conclusion, that says seaweed has the potential to transform the global food packaging industry by reducing reliance on highly pollutive conventional plastic. It does follow because the essence of the passage is that seaweed has the potential to replace the conventional plastic food packaging that cannot be recycled. So this conclusion does follow the statement from the passage, so we will drag a yes and drop it here. Fourth conclusion, that says though one polymer is synthetic and the other natural, both polymers used in the coating of packaging are sourced from renewable resources. It does not follow because the synthetic polymer is derived from petroleum, which is a fossil fuel and not renewable. So this conclusion does not follow the statement of the passage, so we will drag a no and drop it here. Fifth conclusion, which says despite the capability of seaweed to provide non-polluting food packaging, its inability to grow in all climates will prevent it from being a global solution. It does not follow because the last statement explains that seaweed can be grown anywhere. So this statement again does not follow this passage, so we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next we have question number 34, which says the graph shows the results of a survey done on a large sample of a population to understand the impact of a change in work status and work conditions on their mental well-being. So here we have a graph, so you can take a look at this, that it is about the effect of work status and work conditions on mental well-being. So here we have mental well-being, and there we have about the jobs from unemployed to low job satisfaction. So place yes if the conclusion does follow, and place no if the conclusion does not follow. A newly unemployed person has a more robust mental well-being than a person who is disgruntled with the job. Job insecurity is the single largest factor that impacts the mental health of the labor force, both men and women alike. A new job that leaves the newly employed person feeling insecure in their job has the unintended consequence of reducing their mental well being. Different genders must be given different coping strategies to deal with the mental stress that accompanies the commencement of a new permanent job. Prolonged unemployment causes stress, which ultimately has long term psychological health effects that lead to negative consequences on a person's mental health. So, here we have these 5 conclusions. So, let's see which one does follow and which one does not follow the statement of the passage. So here we have our first conclusion. It does not follow because the graph shows the mental well-being of a newly unemployed person to be at the lowest level. So as it does not follow, so we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Second, we have a second conclusion which says job security is the single largest factor that impacts the mental health of the labor force, both men and women alike. So this one again does not follow the passage because newly employed people with job insecurity have better mental well-being than people newly employed for many jobs or those with low job satisfaction. So this conclusion does not follow the statement of the passage, so we will drag a no again and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next we have a third conclusion that says a new job that leaves the newly employed person feeling insecure in their job has the unintended consequences of reducing their mental well-being. So this conclusion does follow because while newly employed people overall show a good level of mental well-being, this well-being is reduced in those with job insecurity. So this conclusion does follow the statement of the passage. So we will drag a yes and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next we have a fourth conclusion which says different genders must be given different coping strategies to deal with the mental stress that accompanies the commencement of a new permanent job. This does not follow. While this may be true, the graph shows that people newly employed at permanent jobs have high levels of mental well-being. The graph also doesn't distinguish between different genders, so we can say that because of this reason, the fourth conclusion does not follow the passage. So we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. Next we have fifth conclusion which says prolonged unemployment causes stress which ultimately has long-term physiological health effects that lead to negative consequences on a person's mental health. So this does not follow. While this may be true, this cannot be concluded from the graph, as the graph talks about a change in work status and not of a prolonged status. So this one does not follow, so we will drag a no and drop it here in front of this conclusion. So here we have completed our fourth type of decision making questions. We have completed all 34 questions of this type. Now we're going to start at fifth type, which is Venn diagram of decision making. So we have some instructions about this Venn diagram. These can take a few different forms. For example, you may be presented with a Venn diagram and asked to select the best conclusion from a list of statements. Then alternatively, you may see a passage which you can interpret in the form of a Venn diagram. Or you may be provided with a set of statements and a set of different Venn diagrams as response options, and be asked to select the Venn that best represents the information provided. So here are some instructions which you can use before solving your questions. So click the next button to proceed. So first question we have that a designer jewelry showroom has jewelry made up of gold, diamond, silver, pearl, and platinum. Each piece was crafted to include one or more of the materials. So here we have this Venn diagram. You can see, and there they show you that these shapes represents first one gold, second pearl, and then we have the shape which represents diamond, and then the last one we have silver and platinum. Now the question is based on the diagram, how many jewelry pieces have gold, diamond and silver but not platinum or pearl? So option A is 12, option B 37, option C 64, and option D 75. So we have these four conclude options. So correct response is option D, that only 75% is present in the section where gold, diamond and silver overlap but not platinum and pearl do not. So because of this reason we can say that option D is the correct option, which is 75% of jewelry pieces gold, diamond and silver have. Next question is that there are two construction companies, company X and company Y, that have their projects inside and outside the United Kingdom. So here we have these Venn diagram with some shapes and some numbers. So what this shape is 1 bhk, then we have a shape which represents the 2 bhk, and then the third one which represents the third bhk, and then we have company X, company Y, and then we have a shape, a dotted rectangle which represents the inside UK. Now the question is that based on the diagram, how many 2 BHK flats were built by company X outside the United Kingdom? So here we have some options that are given below. Option A is 42, option B is 61, option C 102, and then we have option D, that is 163. So the correct response is option C, but now we can see that why other options are incorrect. So here we have option A is incorrect because 42 appears inside the rectangle that represents inside UK, and B is incorrect because 61 appears inside the double-sided arrow that represents company Y, and C is correct because 102 shown outside of the rectangle that represents inside UK and inside the rhombus that represents company X. And option D is incorrect because 163 is the total number of 2 BHK flats built outside the UK, but it is only the number that appears in the rhombus representing X that is relevant. So because of all these reasons, we can say that option C is the correct options, and we can tell why the other options are incorrect. So option C, which is 102, is the correct number of flats. A school timetable is being prepared for 50 students. 20 students are taking geography, 20 students are taking history, and 12 are going to take art. 10 are going to take geography and history, and of these 5 want to take art as well. So the question is, which of the following diagram best represents the above data? So here we have now diagrams in the options, not in the question. So now you can take a look at one by one at each diagram. So this is we have for option A. And then we have the second diagram as option B. And then we have the third diagram that is for option C. And then we have the last diagram for option D. So these diagrams that are called Venn diagrams can become in the form of questions and also can become in the form of the answers. And so that's why you have to be prepared for both type of questions and options. So now we have to select the right diagram which represents the above data. So here we have option C is correct. First let's see why the other options are incorrect. So option A is incorrect because there are 25 students in the top oval and in the right oval, and there should be maximum of 20 in each. So because of this we have option B as the incorrect A option. Then we have option B, which is incorrect because if the right and left ovals represents geography and history, the number both add up to 20. There are too many students in the top oval to represent art, so that's why it's a no. Then we have a C as the correct option, as it correctly identifies the 20 students for geography and for history. Art totals 12, that is 5 plus 7. So it's a correct option. Then we have option D. It is incorrect as it shows no student taking all three subjects. So all three objects. So it shows no student taking all three objects. It should show 5 students taking all three objects. So that's why we have the correct option, that is option C. Next is that the 27 people in a club are either adults or children. There are 3 more males than females. So 12 of the 16 adults are male. So how many male children were there in the club? Option A 3, option B 4, option C 5, and option D 6. So here we have these 4 options. So let's see which one does follow have the correct option. So correct response is option A. This is because if the 12 of the 16 adults are male, then 4 of the 16 adults are female. There are 27 people in the club. So 11 of these must be children. The number of males in total is equal to the number of females in total plus 3, because there are 3 more males than females. So this can be written as 12 male adults plus male children equals to 4. Female adults plus female children plus 3. So this equates to 5 equals female children minus male children. Therefore, 5 plus male children equals to female children. So using the knowledge that the total of male children and female children is equals to 11. Female children can be substituted for 5 plus male children, and the equation can be written as male children plus 5 plus male children is equals to 11. So the number of male children is therefore 3. So here we have this Venn diagram. You can see adults 4, total 12, then we have males 3, and then we have 8. So that's why we have correct option is option A 3. So if you have any confusion, you can ask me in the comment section. I'll be back with another video. Till then, just take care and goodbye.